One afternoon in France around 1940, it was seen that a man named Knox was trying to escape from debt collectors. When he was caught, debt collectors beat him and threatened that if he still couldn't pay off his debt by tomorrow, Knox would die. The next day, Knox was confused about how to pay all of his debts, even though he found it difficult to even eat, even going into debt elsewhere and defrauding many people. At the port, Knox accidentally saw a job vacancy that said needed a doctor for a cruise ship. Even though he did not understand medical science, Knox was desperate to apply. The captain had to accept it. Right when the ship started to depart, a debt collector named Lansky and his partner came and tried to chase them, but they were too late. Knox managed to escape while saying goodbye to Lansky. On the ship just now, Knox felt free. Suddenly the crew came in to take the patient, saw the patient's limp and pale condition. Knox was confused. Fortunately, the patient knew that he was sick with typhoid because he had been sick like this before. The patient then explained how to treat the disease. Hearing this explanation, Knox immediately took notes and followed his directions. During the day after successfully treating the first patient earlier, Knox went around the ship to get fresh air. While walking, he was surprised why there were visitors whose faces were red due to too much long sunbathing. The visitor said that Knox didn't need to worry because his face would heal on its own after a week or two instantly. Knox remembered that he used to read a book on how to make a skin cream to get rid of redness. That night, after gathering all the ingredients, Knox started to mix the cream. The next morning, Knox gave the cream he made a concoction for yesterday's visitors. He tried to make sure that if he routinely uses the cream, the redness on his face due to sunburn will disappear soon without the need to wait 2 weeks and 2 days. Then when Knox was sleeping, yesterday's visitor came and showed his face that was starting to improve. It turned out that the cream made by Knox was so happy that the visitor even offered to pay anything as long as Knox wanted to make the cream he concocted again. Hearing the request just now, Knox was very happy. For the first time in his life, he could earn money the right way. Not only that, the condition of his first patient was also slowly getting better. Then Knox went to the captain of the ship. From the bottom of his heart, he thanked him for giving him the opportunity to start a new life. 5 years have passed. Now Knox has become a real doctor. That afternoon, Knox was on his way by train to a remote village on the outskirts of town. He was asked there to replace a doctor who had just quit, named Dr. Parpalaid. When he arrived at the clinic, Knox met the husband and wife pair who were the caretakers of the place. They told me the reason the party doctor stopped was because there were only a few residents who wanted to go to the clinic for treatment. Even though most of the residents in this village were modern, they still didn't really believe in medical treatment. Heard the story just now, Knox smiled and said he had a way of making this clinic crowded. The next day after setting up the clinic, Knox paid the postman to tell the villagers that next Tuesday when the clinic opened he would give everyone free treatment. After that, Knox went to the nearest pharmacy. When he found out that Knox was a doctor who owned a pharmacy named Mosqueda confided that there was a doctor or no doctor, the pharmacy was always empty. If it continued like this, maybe he would soon go bankrupt. Knox casually offered cooperation. He planned to lure the residents to get free medical treatment at the clinic. Knox was sure that hearing the word free, people would definitely come in droves even though they weren't sick. He would then try to open people's minds about a healthy lifestyle and buy vitamins from this pharmacy. In the end, nothing the disadvantaged. Knox got a lot of patients. Mosqueda's pharmacy was busy and residents could live healthier lives. Hearing the plan, Mosqueda agreed. When he returned to the clinic, the postman reported that he had finished his job. In the middle of the chat, a beautiful girl named Adele came to deliver a letter to the postman. Seeing Adele's beauty, Knox was so enthralled. This was the first time in his life that he saw a woman as beautiful as Adele. When Adele left, the postman told me that the beautiful girl had lived in poverty from a young age alone. Now Adele works at the house of a fierce old woman who owns a farm named Chuck for a bite of rice. Hearing the postman's story, Knox's heart was touched because he used to feel the same way. He also felt how difficult it was to live. The news about Dr. Knox finally spread all over the village. In the bar, people kept talking about Knox, but there was a priest named Lupus who actually didn't like him. He said if Knox was impolite, as a new resident, Knox should introduce himself to him and the mayor first before opening the clinic. Tuesday arrived. All the residents were busy visiting Knox's clinic, including Chuck. Chuck there said actually he was not sick. Chuck only came because he liked free things. Even though he was annoyed, as a professional doctor, Knox still checked his health condition only after being examined. Knox advised that at this age he is quite susceptible to gout, pneumonia, or other dangerous diseases, so if you want to stay healthy, Chuck must also be diligent in taking vitamins and getting more rest. Knox promised that every week he would visit Chuck's house to check on his health. Knox knew his patients would be lazy to go back and forth to the clinic, so for the sake of residents to stay healthy, Knox went to the patient's house. Not long after that, Lupus came, but when he was about to get angry, Knox immediately checked Lupus' condition, then gave him a prescription for vitamins. Because he got free lupus treatment, he finally quieted down. The next day, Knox started visiting people's homes one by one for routine checks. A few days later, at the bar, the villagers continued to praise Knox's satisfactory service. Lupus became even more annoyed that he was jealous since the presence of Knox. The residents became no one to praise him anymore. That night, Knox, Lupus, and several other residents have dinner at the mayor's house, where everyone returns to praising Knox, including a rich widow named Pond. After introducing himself, Knox invited the woman to seek treatment at his clinic. He hoped that if later on, Pond could experience Knox's service, that satisfying service, then he would definitely recommend the clinic to other rich friends, because Pond had been interested from the start and immediately accepted the invitation. Tomorrow, the third day, came as usual. Knox tried to open a mindset about healthy living, and finally Dr. Knox also understood. Because he wanted to live a healthy life, Pond asked Knox to regularly come to the house to check on his health condition 5 times a week for an enormous fee. In the afternoon, when Knox was at Chuck's house for a routine checkup, he met Adele again. Adele said to Knox, since going to the clinic, Chuck's attitude has always changed because Knox told Chuck to take lots of rest. Now he only takes drinking water, so Adele has to take it. After hearing Adele's story, then Knox pranked Chuck. Days passed. During the day, Knox had just finished work. Suddenly a woman named Elizabeth entered the clinic and then opened her clothes and teased Knox. Knox politely refused Elizabeth. That night all the villagers had a party at Pond's house, including Knox. In the middle of the party, Knox accidentally saw Adele arguing with a man and even slapped the man, then left. Knox then hurriedly chased and drove him home. On the way, Adele told me, the man earlier was his boyfriend, but now the two of them just broke up because his girlfriend was caught cheating on him. Saw the woman he liked was upset. Knox tried to cheer him up. While at a party, when Lupus went to the kitchen, he caught a homeless person stealing food. It turned out that the homeless person was a debt collector, Lansky, who used to chase Knox 5 years ago. Even though he was caught stealing, instead of being afraid, Lansky even threatened that if he dared to report it, he would break Lupus's neck. Out of fear, Lupus can only be silent. The next morning, Adele went to the clinic in a panic. He took Knox to go to a hill. When he arrived at the hill, Adele showed a dog who was seriously injured. For 4 days he couldn't get up. Luckily the dog's leg only sprained. After being healed, the dog immediately ran away from Knox. Before going home, the two of them sat together telling each other the stories of each other's lives while enjoying the beautiful scenery. In the afternoon, when Knox went to the pharmacy to invite the mosque out, without him noticing, Lansky was secretly watching him from a distance. Knox and Mosquito went to a hotel, where they invited the hotel owner to work together. Knox planned to turn this hotel into a complete health facility. So later there will be a medical room, a motel rehabilitation center for families of patients who stay the night, and a canteen, if nowadays they are called a hospital, because all the villagers, including the hotel owner, have believed in Knox without asking much. He immediately agreed. The next day on the way, Lansky met Knox, saw Lansky standing in front of him. Knox was speechless in fear. Lansky told him, since his boss died, he had to live as a vagabond from one village to another. He didn't expect Knox, who was once poor and liked to deceive many people, now had an adequate life. At that time Knox knew the direction of Lansky's conversation must be intimidating him. He also paid off all his debts first, then ordered Lansky to leave immediately so as not to spread the disgrace of his past to the villagers. But Lansky instead asked for 3 times his money to shut up. He promised to disappear from this village. If Knox gave the money because he couldn't fight Knox, he could only obey and ask for time to collect the money. In the afternoon, when Knox checked on Chuck's health, Chuck told me that he had to do the housework alone since this morning because Adele was sick. Knox, who was worried, immediately went to see Adele, seeing that Adele's condition was very weak. Knox suggested that Adele go to his clinic for further examination. Before leaving, Knox gave a gift while saying the plan today he wanted to take Adele for a walk and then give the gift. But because Adele was sick, Knox could only give gifts when he heard that. Adele smiled happily even though it was only a small attention, but it felt very special. A few days after Knox's examination, he saw Adele's test results. Then Knox contacted a fellow lung specialist to consult based on the results of the lung doctor's test, explaining that Adele had tuberculosis. Knox then begged his fellow doctor to care for Adele until he was completely healed. No matter what the cost, Knox would pay as long as Adele recovered. Stationed before parting, Knox kissed and tried to make sure someone would heal from a distance. Elizabeth, who happened to be passing by, saw their intimacy just now. Because she was still hurt by her love, she was rejected. She also planned to complain to the priest. At church, Elizabeth told what she saw earlier in Lupus, not only that, she also slandered that Knox once wanted to rape and took off her clothes while being examined. Listening to Elizabeth Lupus' story, happy now she has a gun to destroy Knox. On the other hand, after dropping off Adele, Knox went to the hotel which was planned to be used as a hospital. The hotel owner there told a friend of Knox named Lansky from yesterday renting his hotel room. Knox was shocked and immediately met Lansky. In the room, Knox gave him hush money according to the agreement, then told him to get out of this village right now. However, Lansky refused. Instead, he asked for more money. Even though he was annoyed, Knox tried to stay calm. Knox then said he'd give Lansky the money he asked for at his clinic tonight. At night, according to the agreement, Lansky met Knox at the clinic before giving him the money. Smiling, Knox told Lansky to drink first. When the water he gave him was drunk, this plan worked because he mixed the drink with a laxative. On the other hand, Lupus is seen going to the mayor's office to complain about Elizabeth's story. Lupus is sure that Adele's departure was due to pregnancy out of wedlock. But instead of getting angry, the mayor relaxed while explaining that Adele only went for treatment at a bigger clinic in town. While Elizabeth's story might just be made up by her because Elizabeth used to spread false stories about the mayor as well, hearing the mayor's responses, Lupus fell silent. The next day on the street, when Knox was chatting with Pond, the postman came. The postman told me that a friend named Lansky was in need of Knox, because all day Lansky had stomachaches that didn't stop until his hotel room toilet was broken. Knox pretended to be surprised and said he would immediately treat his friend. In the afternoon, when Knox came, Lansky, who was still sore, begged Knox to treat him while holding back his laughter. Knox said he could treat it easily, as long as Lansky wanted to sign a statement that he would never disturb her again. If Lansky still dares to interfere, then Knox will report it to the police. Because he had no other choice, Lansky gave up and signed the letter and continued to defecate again. Since that incident, Lansky finally left the village. The next day, Knox visited Adele in his room. He strengthened Adele by saying that the doctor who treated Adele was the best doctor in the country, so rest assured, he would recover because he was always alone because of Knox's concern, making Adele touched. Adele then advised that if one day he died, Knox, don't be sad, a good man like Knox must continue to live his days well. When hearing that sentence, Knox bowed his head, holding back his tears. At night, Knox read the letter Adele gave him when he visited him. In the letter, Adele wrote that he really likes blue. For the sake of surprise. The next day Knox asked the hotel owner to paint his hospital blue, so that when he comes home it will be the most beautiful surprise in Adele's life. But in the middle of the conversation the mayor comes. The mayor told me he just got the news that Adele has died. In the afternoon at the church, all the villagers attended Adele's funeral as Pastor Lupus led the prayer and told all of Adele's good things during his life. But when everyone was grieving, Lupus took the opportunity to attack Knox. Lupus said that he felt sorry for Adele because at the end of his life he was a girl. Beauty has been conned by a con man like Knox. It turned out that, before leaving, Lansky had uncovered Knox's bad past, which often went into debt and deceived many people. Lupus even goes so far as to say a con man doesn't deserve to be Dr. Knox, who was fed up and then opens it all up in front of the villagers. Knox said yes, he used to be a fraud before he was indeed a lowly poor person and had debts everywhere, but he was forced to do that just to eat the money, not for gambling, drunkenness, or spree. All this time, Knox has worked hard studying desperately so he can become a useful doctor for the community, but if the people in this village don't want to be treated by former despicable humans like him, then he will leave after expressing his heart's content. Knox went straight to the clinic and then packed his things. In the church, the residents were touched. They shared stories with each other about the results of the changes they had felt since the presence of Dr. Knox. There are those who have now stopped smoking. There are those whose toothaches are cured. There are those whose bodies feel healthier and fitter, as well as various kinds of healing from other ailments. In the middle of the conversation, suddenly a small child came in and shouted that just now he saw Dr. Knox packing his things. All the residents immediately went out to chase the doctor, leaving Lupus alone. On the way, when Knox was about to leave, he was shocked, saw all the villagers came to surround. Knox was scared. He was afraid of being beaten. At first he thought the residents were angry because they were instigated by Lupus, but in fact they all begged Dr. Knox not to go. Since Dr. Knox came, the lives of residents in this village have changed to be healthier. Maybe Dr. Knox's past was bad, but his presence means a lot to them. Know that Lupus is just jealous, and that's humane. Later, let them embrace Lupus so that they will open their hearts to receive Dr. Knox. To hear the words of the villagers, Knox was so moved that he was happy that the doctor decided to stay and would continue to heal the villagers.